Hey everybody, I'm Mark Walters with BigFanboy.com, and I'm joined by my dear friend Tim Bradstreet, and I could not be more happy to have Tim on because we're going to be talking about his new project, which I am extremely excited about. I've had a chance to see it ahead of time. You guys have no idea how exciting this is. It's called Cinematica, ladies and gentlemen. Tim Bradstreet. Tim, tell them a little bit about what Cinematica is, and we'll get right into this baby.
Kind of feel like a wrestler, professional wrestler doing a spot like you buy this. Um,
You buy it.
yeah, exactly. Sorry, I got a Leon Spinks broken tooth here. Um, Cinematica is basically it's a new art book. It's basically uh, film-based stuff. Instead of superheroes and my favorite superheroes and the kind of stuff that I love to draw normally with comics. It's my favorite movie characters. It's artwork from my favorite movies. And you're probably watching me because you're a fan of the comics and stuff like that, and that's how you know my work, or for role-playing games if you go way back. And this is basically just like any old art book, except it's not really about the art first. It's about movies first. It's about my love affair it's a love letter to film. So it's just illustrations that of characters I love. I mean, I don't know if I could put it any more simple than that.
We're showing the cover right now on screen, and so I want people to take a gander at this. And this just kind of gives you a taste of what you can expect. But just so many really iconic images and fan favorite performers, whether it's A-list actors, character actors. I know you and I share a love for character actors, and I was so happy to see that you included M. Emmett Walsh on the cover.
You know,
One of my favorite.
Harry
Yeah.
Dean Stanton, Emmett Walsh, Brian James. Yeah, part of the thing about Cinematica is like I'm a huge fan of character actors, as many of us are. And I always feel like, regular folks just don't know who these guys are. You know the face, but you don't know the name. And so with each there's going to be more volumes of Cinematica. This is just the first of several. Um, I always do a spotlight on character actors that are kind of deserving of kind of more visibility. If I could draw you to their work and like introduce you to, if you haven't seen their stuff before, you might go seek it out. Um, but I guess it's all about sharing the love. I mean, the whole thing about Cinematica is it's a conversation. Everyone knows these movies. Most people in our industry anyway. It's mostly genre fare. It's basically fantastic film. And occasionally I'll foray into a classic Western, Rio Bravo or something like that. But yeah, so that's it in a nutshell, yes. And you're looking at Toshiro Mifune right now, I believe. And that's for Red Sun, which is one of the films. Each volume of Cinematica features 75 different films. And it started out as, kind of a side project for me. I've always drawn stuff from movies, but all that stuff's in my flat files and no one ever sees that. And I just started doing it again, and I found myself with this compulsion to keep doing it. I couldn't stop myself. And I mean, I really couldn't stop myself. It was probably 7 years I was, working on this thing almost straight, and definitely putting more time into it than my normal stuff. I was basically only doing enough real work to pay the bills, and I was putting 70% of my time into this stuff. So, I didn't intend to do anything with it at first, but it just kind of, when you get to the point where you have 400 or 500 illustrations stacked up in a folder, you're like, yeah, maybe I should put these together in a book.
Do you want to tell people real quickly? I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people that are watching this, if they're familiar with you, they know a little bit about your background, but if you could just encapsulate, just in case there's anybody that's watching this that doesn't know about your past work, maybe just kind of like some of the things that you're most well known for, just, for the person that maybe has never met you before or hasn't picked up one of your books.
I'd say that, the first thing that I would be considered widely known for would be Vampire the Masquerade, which is from the role-playing game industry. It's a live action role-playing game. And that was, real lucky to get caught up in lightning in a bottle with that project. It turned into something huge. And that was, I think, in 91. And then I broke into comics. And one day I got a call from an editor at Vertigo, and he asked me if I wanted to do Unknown Soldier, and that turned into me getting the Hellblazer cover job. which I did for 7 or 8 years. And during the Hellblazer run, I got a chance to do. Jimmy Palmiotti stopped me on an escalator at Comic-Con one year and said, "Would you want to do Punisher covers?" And I said, "Absolutely, I would love to do Punisher. Can I take him out of the white boots and put him in like some real duds?" And he's like, that's why I'm asking you."
Yeah.
Um, so basically Punisher, yeah, Hellblazer and Vampire the Masquerade are my big ones.
Are you seeing what I'm seeing on the screen right now? I was speaking
I
of Jimmy Palmiotti. I wanted to mention that the book has a foreword by Jimmy Palmiotti in it as
That's
well.
right. That's right. One of my dearest friends in this industry and a huge supporter on Kickstarter. And a huge supporter. He's helped me out a lot in my, like every once in a while I find myself without any work, I'll call Jimmy and he's always got something up his sleeve. So um you can't stay in front of editors' eyes all the time. Sometimes you need a push. So
Yeah. And Jimmy's always been very supportive of a lot of creatives in the industry and really knows what he's talking about. And I think, he obviously saw something in you years ago, as I did, and I've really loved following your work, and I love seeing your takes on like lesser known films, but also big films like Indiana Jones, and seeing how you handle that. I think I was telling you when I was looking at this originally, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen you do Indiana Jones before, so that was really
that's
kind of
right. Oh, I should have sent you the one where he's holding onto the tank, holding onto the barrel of the tank.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
a piece that piece is in the early in the book, with a kind of an introduction, forward, however you want to put that. Um, and yeah, that Indiana Jones, heck, man. I mean, all I ever needed was an excuse, you
yeah,
know? And if you're not getting called by a client saying, "Hey, I want you to do a cover for this Indiana Jones comic adaptation," there's just really, or a paperback book cover or something like that. But
yeah.
if it doesn't happen, you kind of got to take matters into your own hands. And that's a big part of what I was doing here. I wanted to approach this stuff after I got drawing these cool faces out of my system. I figured that there needed to be a rhyme and a reason. Why shouldn't I be playing to some of the things that I've always loved about films, which is, the movie poster. Um, and so, I found myself creating movie posters for stuff. 3 Days of the Condor, Full Metal Jacket, American Werewolf in London. And then I thought that's a really cool idea, but what if I did like I'm a big fan of lobby cards. So I started doing lobby card pieces and stuff like that. And just imagine, I got hired by the studio that was making the movie and hired to do these pieces.
I,
Um,
I want to show people if you just want an idea of what all is included in this. This will give you a taste, and this is the table of contents. And if you needed an excuse to be excited about this, my God, um,
yeah, 75.
I imagine it's hard too for you to pick and choose. Like, okay, what do I include in this one and what do I save for the future one? How hard was that, like figuring out just that first book and what all you wanted to make sure was in there? Like, did you draw names out of a hat? I mean, how exactly do you do that?
Essentially, we basically, me and my publishing partners, we've basically went through and identified what the characters were from every film I had and made a list of all the films. And once we had that list in front of us, we went we went down it and kind of pared it down to I think 100. And
Mhm.
then I let them take that 100 and figure out what the 75 movies were going to be. And then we started putting it together. And out of the 75 we initially picked, we only made three changes. And that was really because of the layout. It had nothing to do with the films. It just fit better, with this combination. For the next book, it's going to get a little tougher because you knock all these ones out. Sorry, I didn't finish what I was saying, but I will have, like you see Alien here. This is a great example.
Yeah,
I have so much Alien artwork that I couldn't fit it all in here. I think
yeah,
there's even stuff in the extras in the back, but I got plenty more for another 4 or 5 spreads. So there will be repeat movies throughout the series. We'll never repeat the art that's been shown before, but there will be additional stuff like from the stuff, Blade Runner and Alien, kind of the two holy grails of science fiction and fantasy. Um, there's a lot of stuff there, and a lot of Charlton Heston because he was like the biggest movie star in the world when I was a kid. So Planet of the Apes, Omega Man, things like this. Um, and Vincent Price, I probably have, between Vincent Price and Boris Karloff and Peter Cushing, I think there's a contest there between who's got the most in my hip pocket already, and I think that's somewhere between 12 and 17 illustrations of that of just one guy from different movies, of course.
Yeah. I also want to talk about in the picture that we currently have up here. On the right hand side, you have this phenomenal alien piece, but on the left hand side, the fistful of dollars, and talking specifically about, we get to also hear your thoughts and your personal feelings on these movies and what they mean to you and what the performances mean to you. What was it like being able to kind of dive into that on a personal level and be able to share that, not just share your pictorial visualization of what this meant to you, but to be able to write it out as well?
Well, I think for me, it was like I was a kid in a candy shop. And that's not always a good thing. You have to rein yourself in on occasion. But there was this book that Flesk put out a couple years ago about Franklin Booth, and it was called Painter with a Pen. He's an illustrator, but his stuff is so, like full of stuff. It's so detailed that they're like paintings. And so that was, I took that to heart and I said, like, I'm not going to rush myself on any of these pieces. This doesn't directly answer your question, but I'm getting there. But I'm gonna let myself, do whatever I need to do. And the Clint Eastwood shot there from Fistful of Dollars, it's just one of the most visceral things I'd ever seen in a film when I first saw it. And so that is why that specific shot is in there, that seeing him crawl underneath that boardwalk to escape the Rojos. I mean, it's just one of those things where it just punched me in the face when I was a kid. It's like I had to have it in there. But another example is also on that page, and that is the little graphic at the bottom that shows the street and him riding into town in a more graphic kind of way. Now, when we first did the layout on this, it was just all illustrations. But as I got moving on it, I thought we have these little spaces that'd be great to fill and not just be white on the page. And so I wanted to create like just something quick I could do on the fly to help flavor each of these entries. And so, Fistful was like, I didn't have enough stuff, but I wanted to include it in the book. So I did this little piece at the bottom. And you'll see that periodically throughout the book are these graphic images that are kind of fun. People play with this silhouette image thing a lot with movie posters because a lot of people aren't adept at illustration or drawing. So you take the iteration, you take things that are, that represent things, the outline of a person but you could tell it's Roy Batty, it's like you can tell certain characters are certain characters just by the little earmarks they all have. And it always fascinated me anyway. I always loved silhouette illustration, and I tried to do it one better and make it layers of silhouette playing together to give it just a little bit more depth.
Now, speaking of real characters in film, when you asked me what do you want to showcase in this interview, one of the first names that came to mind was Charles. I mean, come on, this guy, not just the iconic performances in movies and whatnot, but just him as a person. Bronson was unlike any other actor, and like you said earlier, one of those guys that we grew up watching, and he was just like, you think of the word tough guy, and this is one of the guys that comes to mind. And seeing you having fun with some of his classics here, and again, writing out your thoughts on the films and whatnot, I imagine this was incredibly fun to sink your teeth into.
Yeah, absolutely. And along with Vincent Price and the names that I mentioned earlier, Charles Bronson is also one of those faces that I cannot stop drawing because there's so much character in it. It's like just a roadmap of a lot of experience. And I never get tired of drawing his mug, and it was like for this book, it was like like it wasn't a book when I first started doing it. It was just like, oh, I love this shot. I've always loved this shot. I want to draw that. And so Charles Bronson is the subject of many of those. Clint Eastwood is another one. All those iconic films of my youth, like High Plains Drifter, Fistful of Dollars, the Dollars trilogy, Dirty Harry. I mean, Clint was that staple. Also, Bronson, that staple of the 70s when I was growing up, when I was a kid. These were the giants. I mean, they have an otherworldly identity to me in a way. They're larger than life, and I love drawing things that are larger than life, like Charles Bronson.
Yeah, the mechanic here, another wonderful, just very iconic performance.
Yeah, and that's a good example too. Like you see this piece, the mechanic shot here, where he's got the camera going out the window, is not a finished piece. And sometimes I get like, I'll be working on a piece and I'll reach a point on it, and I'm like, I just kind of like the way it looks like right there. I don't want to finish it and ruin
Yeah.
it.
And
So that's kind of one of
it
those
kind of
things.
fits the film too in a way. Like it has that rough kind of, like I like seeing the process on this.
Yeah, he's kind of what grooming his protege, the guy that's going to end up stepping into his shoes at some point. And the great thing about the mechanic is, he's kind of prepared for almost any situation. He's got to expect the unexpected. So even when he does get surprised, the surprise still comes back at the surpriser. Well, that's about as well as I could put that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, mechanic. If you've never seen the mechanic, I mean, that's what I hope people do when they see this book. Is like a lot of these movies are movies that films that people have seen before. But there's going to be a lot of people that are looking through this that are younger going, you know what, I never watched this because it's like 20 years old. I'm into what's on right now. I want to turn people onto this stuff too that haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah. I want to show this piece. I think we showed it earlier, but I want to highlight it again because it's a really good example of, just the pen and ink and the beauty of a classic film and just seeing it in pen and ink and not even having to rely on the color to be able to invoke the feeling of a shot. And this is just an absolutely gorgeous piece. And again, a film I hope modern generations get a chance to see at some point in their life.
That's one of the things that was a very much a challenge about this book is like I didn't want to include a heck of a lot of stuff that has been seen a million times. And for Seven Samurai, there's only so much material, right? That's out there. Any films made before the the early 2000s, are all on film and not there's no digital, there's not high resolution. Um, and so that's one of the few examples of me taking a piece that's very well known and putting my stamp on it. Um, and I mean that's the challenge there is like what makes your work different from the photograph? Well, the stylization is what does it. And you could give that piece that image to 10 different artists, and I'm sure there's 10 different drawings versions of it somewhere. If you looked around and you set all those next to each other and you see the differences between them, is really interesting how you see how their filters work, when it comes out of them. Mine is very much, especially with that image, very hard-edged, very raw, kind of statement kind of piece. It took me back to my days of pure illustration when I was just doing role-playing games and things like that. We didn't do color. So you got to make that illustration have enough guts to stand in black and white. And that's the trick to it is getting enough. I was always kind of a detail freak, and I'm even worse now. Most artists try to simplify in their careers, and as try as I might, I only ever begin to start noodle. I just noodle more and more and more at every point. So
Speaking
uh, I'm
speaking
never
of
going to be
hard
Jack Kirby.
Speaking of hard edge, you and I will often talk about movies that we love that we hate that no one else has ever seen them or that very few people have ever seen them. And when I saw this, when I saw you do Rain of Fire, I was like, yeah, this is like Tim and I talking about, hey, let's talk about a cool movie that hardly anyone has ever seen. And I love seeing your take on this as well. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And definitely not a way like when people think of the name Matthew McConaughey,
Right.
not what comes to mind immediately, but so cool to see him in that movie and see that take on that character. I thought that was a terrific film to.
It's funny because before I'd seen this movie, I was at San Diego Comic-Con and I was sitting out in the back of a hotel having drinks with Chris Warner from Dark Horse,
Mhm.
great artist. And I go, yeah. He goes, anybody seen Rain of Fire? And I said, yeah. Well, no, I saw the trailer. I really want to see that movie. It looks great. And he goes, yeah. He goes, there wasn't a real man left in Hollywood until Matthew McConaughey climbs out of the tank in Rain of Fire. And I was like, what? And so it got me really excited to go see it. And of course, as soon as I got back, heck, I might have seen it while I was still at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, McConaughey is just blow your mind in that. It's like unlike anything he'd done up to that point, and it was a real surprise. And it's Rob Bowman, I believe, the director who came from the X-Files. So
Yeah,
I'm a movie nerd, as you are, as
yeah,
many of our friends are, and so I tend to speak in movie references. This is something that my wife gets on me all the time. I, I just, like movie lines keep come out of me, and because there's something that applies to anything in life from movies you've seen. And every spread, every film in Cinematica has a movie quote attached to it.
yeah,
Um, and that's probably going to be, that's very, everyone has their favorites. And they're probably my favorites. But I think that also brings you into that personalization. You see that little quote from that film, and it opens doors, man. If you haven't seen it yet, and you're like that, those are intriguing things.
yeah. You mentioned Vincent Price earlier, and so I'm so happy to bring this up right now because just a really fun shot of one of the greatest. I think we could call him a character actor. I mean, he's certainly
Absolutely.
transcended that, but he's one of the best character actors I think we've ever had.
Yeah, classically trained and just what a brilliant performer. So much presence, so much character, so one of a kind. I think, he along with Chris Lee and Peter Cushing, along with from the previous generation, Boris Karloff are those four, big and arguably Bela Lugosi, yes, of course. But I mean, like when you talk about the faces that are most identified with horror, you throw Bela in with that too. Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing. They're the five fingers on a hand, baby.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So I never get tired of drawing Vincent Price. And Vincent, this is the thing about Tomb of Ligeia is that what he looks like in this movie is just like unlike you've never seen Vincent Price look like this. The
yeah,
glass and it's just such an iconic look. It always intrigued me. And the cat that you see on the movie poster, I try to do a variation on that for mine, like kind of if the same artist was still around, I tried to ape that style. And it was probably just a quick paste up, it wasn't, I'm sure it wasn't any mastermind, but it's gorgeous. It just works. And
yeah.
so that was a lot of fun to do.
Hey, not everybody can make that hat work. Come on.
It's true. That's true. Not everybody can wear that stove, what do they call it, a stovepipe?
Yeah, absolutely. While we're going through some of the other images here, tell people real quickly what is the current plan as far as Cinematica in terms of distribution? You mentioned earlier about the partners you're working with, one of whom I love, Steve Favecki is great.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about what you guys have planned as far as getting this out there to the public.
Well, we have a pre-order page up, I believe, and but I always was under the impression that the attack was going to be a crowdfund, and so Kickstarter was our first choice. They do their projects on Kickstarter, the Art of Jaws, the Art of the John Carpenter's The Thing. They're pretty widely known for doing these art book collections of films that are really inspirational. I think they've got one in the works, the Spanish language films of Guillermo del Toro. They've got a Crow book coming out, and basically they get, people just leap to be in these books, and they have just different, every page is by a different artist. And when I approached them about this, I'd already been working with them doing anniversary movie posters. And I said, I've got these things and I'm thinking about doing a book, and it all just kind of blew up that way. And like I said, yes, there's plans to do volume two, volume three, volume four. If I could spend my time just drawing this stuff all day, and like this book made me enough money to just drop everything else, I would do it.
Yeah,
But I mean, I would still do comics, but yeah, I mean, if I could sit around doing that all the time and actually getting paid for it, as opposed to not getting paid for it, which is what actually happened, that would be fantastic. But yeah, mainly just crowdfund and taking them to shows and just trying to get the word out so that people can pre-order this thing and get their hands on it. It's not the same world as it was 10 years ago, as far as distribution goes.
that's true. That's very true. But I think that this is the kind of thing that is special enough to where hopefully people will seek it out and spread the word, and that's what we're going to do our best to do as well. You mentioned earlier Clint Eastwood, so I wanted to make sure and bring this one up. Uh,
Heartbreak Ridge, right?
oh my God. Yeah, look at that face. Like you said, road map all over that face.
It's so funny, and a lot of these movies like Near Dark or Heartbreak Ridge. To me, they're movies, they feel like they've only been around for a few years because everything's relative that way. And I look back and I'm like, man, that was an eight in the 80s. That was like, how long ago was that? Holy crud. So it's neat to bring that part represent that part too, the 70s and 80s. It's mostly that stuff, but yeah, I mean, Cinematica rolls around. There's probably going to be like a somewhat of a special edition Cinematica where it's like Hollywood tough guys. There might be a theme. I want to do it, if we get down to it and we can actually justify it, I want to do, those faces of horror. I'd love to do just a straight up horror edition of Cinematica. That would be my first choice. And then probably the tough guys, and then science fiction if we could do it, if we had
Yeah.
enough good interest.
Is there a film, speaking of science fiction, I want to show this off real quick because I just love this shot. But is there a film, whether it be science fiction or horror, that you have found to be really intimidating that maybe you haven't tackled yet? Or is that something that you just kind of say, no, I'm gonna go full barrel, both barrels on this no matter what, because I just got to do it.
Yeah, I don't know that I have anything really inhibiting me. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would intimidate me.
Hmm.
Um, because, I mean, if this was 25 years ago, that the answer to that might be very different. But as it is now, after after when did I start? 86 is when I started like drawing professionally. I've kind of like, I got my spurs. I earned them, and so yeah, there's no subject that's too out there for me.
Yeah.
Um, and in fact, what I like to do and what I'll be doing in further volumes of Cinematica is it's not just going to be my voice talking about it. I'm going to go to people that are actually in the industry, actors, directors, cinematographers, musicians, name it. And I want to know what inspired them to take on that, go into film as a career, what pushed them towards that. You may not be able to say what your favorite movie is. That's a tough question. But you probably know if you're working in that industry what that movie was that just tripped that trigger in you and made you want to do what you're doing for a living. So, I'm gonna make Tom Jane come in and do some stuff. Burton Gilliam, hopefully for next issue, next volume, from Blazing Saddles, who's just one of my favorite character actors on the planet. And lucky enough to meet him at your show last couple weeks ago. That was great.
I was so happy to make that happen because you and I have talked about Burton Gilliam for so long, and I've been fortunate enough to become friends with him, and I was so excited to be able to put you two guys together because when I first talked to him about you and this project, he immediately was like, "I want to meet him. I want to meet him. I want to talk to him. I want
That's
to find out
cool.
about it," and
And
that's great. Yeah.
it's been a long time coming, I know, you've always had celebrities come to your shows, and I think the first time I realized Burton Gilliam was at your show, I must have thrown a rod. I was like, oh my God, you have Burton Gilliam. Holy crap. I can't believe
Well,
you're doing shows.
speaking of character actors that we love, I mean, this guy right here, M. Emmett Walsh, one of the best of in terms of character actors. This is the character actor. This is a guy that, when we grew up watching movies, whether it was movies or TV shows, he was always there. He was always kind of that comfort face that you saw in everything, and just a chameleon of an actor. Because you see
Straight
him in
guy.
one thing where he's really funny and he's really likable and personal, and then you see him in Blood Simple, and he's just the nastiest, mean guy.
Lascivious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Loves
mean,
love
you can
seeing you
see
take
too.
tackle.
The
Yeah.
brunt of my blood simple artwork is M. Emmett Walsh.
Yeah.
It's like, I haven't drawn anyone else from that movie. Although I'm thinking of
Dan
oh
Hedaya.
yeah, Dan Hedaya.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think he'd be a great subject too, especially for character faces like little spotlights. But yeah, it's interesting that M. Emmett Walsh made it into this book from Blood Simple before he made it in from Blade Runner, because both those characters are, even though his character, Brian in Blade Runner is fairly small part. He's just, again, I think you hit it on the head. He was that face that plugged into that situation. He's so versatile that you get a recognizable face in there with a lot of people that you don't recognize yet. I mean, Rutger Hauer was new to American audiences at the time. I think he'd done what? Nighthawks. when he looks
Yeah,
completely different in that than he does in this. Oh, and
absolutely.
speaking of Nighthawks, there's a trivia contest in this book, and in every there's going to be one in every volume of Cinematica, and it's a movie karate uh, trivia test. You got to know your movies, and there are some questions that you probably won't get every one of them right. Anybody that gets all 10 right, there's a rating in the back. I worship you if you get all these right, because every list is going to be personal to the person who made the list. So, in a lot of cases, it's going to be a lot of obscurity for some people.
Yeah.
But
I also love your use of negative space in some of these pieces because like I'm looking at this piece right now and I'm thinking if the artwork had taken up more of this, it would not have worked. It would not have invoked that same feel that it does now. I feel like the use of white actually does add to the piece. And I imagine that's something that you probably wrestle with every time you tackle a piece like this. Is
well,
like, go ahead.
it's what movies, movie marketing is in its essence. If I drew the entire photo, like this, the entire picture that I had the reference for,
Hmm.
there would be grass and I think there's sugarcane stalks and stuff like that. And there's really no, I mean, it's not a composition that's all that pleasing. What you do is you take that main focus out of it and you present it in that kind of a way right there where it has some punch. And that's the essence of movie marketing. You just want to draw something, you want to create something that's iconic, that's identifiable for people, and something that they can just zero in on. And that's kind of why I've always loved movie posters so much because it's either that single image making you go, whoa, or it's like a composite of hundreds, dozens of different images working together in a composition. Just giving you little tastes of what's in this movie or the people that are in it. And that is just infinitely intriguing and fun for me. Um, and that Red Sun's a good example of that because there's no shot that exists that looks like that. I basically took him off a bad angle of a horse he was on and stapled him into I just Frankensteined it together and created a new image from the imagery. So, that's what you have to do sometimes as when you're doing art that's representing a film. You can't just stick to what is going to be on the photo. Sometimes you have to take it beyond it.
Yeah. Is there anything about this book that we want to make sure people are aware of, other than the details we've already covered? You did mention there is a website they can go to, and we're going to have more information down below on where people can find out more information about this
Yeah.
and possibly future volumes as well. We're going to be kind of keeping tabs with you on that. Is there anything else that you want to make sure people are aware of, leading into this first volume?
Well, I mean, as long as everyone knows about this really tough trivia contest. No, um,
Is
not,
there
no, I
no
mean,
prize? Is there no prize if they win the trivia
there
contest?
should be a no prize. But no, you get paid in compliments. But
Yeah,
the whole idea on the trivia contest is, hey, if you cheat, that's on you. You know you cheated. So,
right.
wallow in that if you got to do it. But if you can do it without, going to IMDb, it's like I think we were having this conversation a couple weeks ago. Before IMDb existed, I was IMDb. You
Yeah.
were IMDb. Like our friends would call us in the middle of the night. Hey, turn it to Channel 9. Who's this on Columbo? And you go, oh, that's Elijah Cook Jr. You remember him from Maltese Falcon? Like stuff like that. And but it's fun. The challenge is not to go to IMDb and just let your memory take over. Stop trying so hard; it'll come to you.
I was actually thinking about you the other day because I was watching a Columbo episode. It's funny you brought up Columbo, and it had Vera Miles was the main antagonist in the episode, but Vincent Price was in it, and a very young Martin Sheen was in it, and I just love how you can watch those old shows and see people like that just piled into the show like it was no big deal.
Yeah.
We don't get that anymore, you know?
Well, we do. The thing is, we're old. We
Yeah,
are old. Like we look back at Columbo from when we were children. That was on, and looking back on those characters, you go, "Wow, that guy's a huge star now. It's so cool to see this earlier thing." Well, that happens on everything. Like look at X-Files. The X-Files is now old. I mean, we'll go back and look. Oh, it's Seth Green. Oh, it's this guy. Oh, it's this guy. Holy crud! I mean, it does happen with everything. If it's iconic enough and it lasts long enough, people are going to go revisit it and see things they didn't pick up on the first time they watched it. That's one of the great things about this. The replayability of films, it just makes them comfort films,
yeah.
which I try to have. something on to entertain me while I work all the time, and generally it's movies or TV. But you can never stick something in that you haven't seen before that might draw your attention too much from the page, because otherwise you're just going to be watching a movie instead of drawing and getting the work done. Some
Absolutely.
people don't have that discipline.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. I know you have an absolute, ton of work that you've still got that we haven't seen yet that's going to be in future volumes of Cinematica. Wanted to share. Okay. Are there pieces that you want to tackle that maybe you think are like down the line and especially now because I mean since you've put this together, I would imagine that it sparks creativity in terms of, okay, now I'm thinking about this, whereas I wasn't thinking about that before.
You go into the rabbit hole of one film and you'll come out the other side 10 films later, having referenced into it through one thing and that taking you to another thing, taking you to another thing. That's the conversation. Uh,
Yeah.
Film is an endless conversation between fans. One thing I also wanted to say, and I completely kind of overlooked this before, you look at this cover right here that we're looking at,
Hmm.
and you don't see any women. What's the one thing you don't see any women? Why is that? Well, the reason is because I was a kid and my heroes were men. And
Yeah.
so it's what you call, I guess, male fantasy. And I know it sounds dirty, it's not. But and a lot of the stuff in this first book is mostly male driven, and that's just because that's what I could identify with. However, this is the bulk of it, and there will be a lot more women in the next one. I just wanted to make sure people didn't know I was, like excluding women on purpose. I'm not. But we'll get into a lot of the great female roles in the second volume for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, are we overlooking
I
anything?
think
I want to make sure we covered it all.
I think, I mean, whatever questions we didn't answer here, we'll answer within the Kickstarter page.
Uh,
Um, we do have plans to really continue with this brand, I guess you'd call it, this title. When I wanted to do this art book, I didn't want it to be just an art book. I wanted it to be a commentary, right? So it is that. I wanted to kind of combine it with what a magazine does, like Starlog or something like that. So
yeah.
it's a lot of it's like personal stuff, but I mean, as we go on, like I said, I'll be including voices from the industry itself and getting to know like a little bit more about our favorite actors that way, like what inspired them. I think that's a great, it's just a really interesting angle on it. I want to know what other people think. And that's true of actors, but it's also true of my next door neighbor. I'm like, hey, what is your favorite movie? Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite film that, Halloween? What is it? And generally I always get a great answer. And if they can speak about it passionately, it's like that's all I require. If you can talk about that movie with a little bit of knowledge and and a lot of passion. I want to know what your thoughts are on this because I think everyone has that very similar kind of, experience. And, that makes it personal to people.
Can
Like I
I
said,
make a request?
yeah, absolutely.
Can we see some Kevin McCarthy at some point?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, there we
I'm
go.
just, we're going to do a TV book.
I just want to put it in your head because I know you're going to be thinking about it.
It wasn't going to cross-pollinate into TV. It's a movie book, but that just means there's not going to be TV and movies in the same book. That doesn't mean that we're not going to do a straight up, and this goes back to your question earlier, a straight up TV edition. And that's going to be Twilight Zone, all those great. Yes. So Kevin McCarthy is definitely, if he doesn't make it in for Invasion of Body Snatchers alone, there's, the great episode of the Twilight Zone he's on. Yeah, those are really favorite character actors because that's who we grew up watching, man. All that stuff in syndication.
Yeah,
Uh, it's why younger guys from that compared to that generation where the Twilight Zone was coming out, late 50s, early 60s, we weren't even born yet. But the fact that we can go back and watch a show like that, have it stand up, have it still be influential and iconic, and that we can pick up things um, through that kind of a program is a testament to how lasting they are and why I love to do it.
absolutely, man.
But Kevin
Well,
McCarthy for sure.
please, yes, we got to make that happen. Well, Tim, I just want to say, listen, man, you and I, we've been friends now for half my life, and I've been following your career and watching what you do, and I know how much this means to you. and I know how important it is to you, and I'm extremely happy to see that you've put this together. I cannot wait for other people to see it for themselves. I'm honored that you turned to me to even like help promote this because I think it's very exciting. I think it is your opus, like, and so I can't wait for people to see it.
Yeah, I was really hoping that when I finally did this book that I would have it go alongside a gallery show.
Yeah.
Uh, that was kind of it. Maybe I'll do that for volume two. But I mean, yeah, I wanted it to be, kind of its own little event kind of a thing, but that it has this kind of like movie quality about it, like it's the movie marketing is what kind of it's all behind everything. So, um, yeah, I just, I hope everyone digs it and it gives me an excuse to do more and more because otherwise I just have to draw the Red Hood or, you know, I mean, I love to be able to work in film and like I said, like I've been paid to do that on occasion. Guillermo del Toro gave me my first job and and I love the experience. It's something I always dreamed about doing as a kid, right? But comics became the vehicle to kind of get my work out there so it was visible to people that could be like, hey, I really love that thing. Why don't we get him to do this conceptual art for this movie? I mean, it kind of one thing leads to another. It's the connective tissue. Um, and I don't know where I was going with that. I've lost the track of it. But the essence is that it's this passion overflowing thing, and I didn't get paid for it for 7 years. Talked to my wife about that. Um, so it's kind of time for me to kind of contribute back on that, and I'm looking forward to doing it and doing a lot more of these things. It's going to be a
Well,
ball.
we're going to keep tabs on it and we'll have information on where people can find out more about Cinematica and any future volumes of Cinematica. So stay tuned to bigfanboy.com. We're going to be sharing this with some partner sites as well. And just Tim, it's just, it's always fun talking to you, man. And it's great seeing that you've put this together. And I like I said already, I can't wait for other people to see it because I know what's coming. And these people are just getting a taste today. So when they see the full thing, I think they're going to be they're in for a treat.
I know you're winding this up. But one thing that I did neglect to say was, we were talking about different people lending their voice to the book. I'm going to start to weave the Kickstarter into it a little bit and have people, bid on something that or have a tier where they get to choose the movie and they get to choose the actor. I think
Oh,
that
that's a
and
great idea.
they not only that, they get to write it.
Yeah,
It'll be really fun because anyone who picks up this book is going to be a huge movie fan. I'm guessing,
yeah.
and so I think anybody that really loves movies can speak to it.
And that would make it a truly interactive experience. That's great.
Absolutely,
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Bless you.
that's my genie move. Thanks,
Cinematica, folks, look down below for more information, and we're going to follow up with Tim later. Take
thanks
care.
everybody.
Tim Bradstreet, right there, right there. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.